All of the surrounding counties in the metro area are important to Raphael Warnock if he's going to succeed tonight, because that's where all the blue votes are. About 6 million voters live in the Atlanta metro area, and these are the bluest counties of the state. And I will say something, David, you and I have talked about, that, for all the polls showing that this race is tied, I will underline that the changing demographics in Georgia actually favor the Democrats. Because when Stacey Abrams, for example, when she ran 4 years ago, she lost by about 50,000 votes. Since then, about 50,000 people have moved to the Atlanta metro area, the blue counties, each year. And that helps Democrats. There are more potential voters, they argue, in this state. And so these numbers so far look encouraging for the Democrats. But of course, as Rick has pointed out, it is early in the night. We've seen this happen many times before, where large leads evaporate. It'll be very interesting. I'd keep a close eye on what the total vote that happened today, the election, the votes that were cast today, what that number is. And then, of course, we're all looking at the third-party candidate, especially in the Senate race, to see what that percentage is, if that pushes this into a runoff, if it's close between the other two candidates. David?
But Steve, this has been a really interesting example of one of these cases where the Democratic incumbent has distanced himself from President Biden. He was asked whether Biden would come campaign with him. He said, it's not about who I'm campaigning with, it's about who I'm campaigning for.
He has, because, he's looking at the issues that people care about here. As Lindsay just shared, inflation is top of mind. I talked with a number of voters this morning, both red and blue voters, who all talked about inflation, the price of gas, economic concerns. And what at least I'm hearing on the ground is that while the left had hoped that issues like abortion would drive, for example, white suburban women to the polls, the main issue still is economic. That's what's really driving voters. That's what's on the mind of voters here in this election. And I heard a number of voters who told me that, they're actually going to vote a split ticket. This is on the left and the right, who care about the economy, of course, but also about some more traditional blue issues as well.
All right, Steve-O in Georgia. Steve, will be coming back to you many times, I'm sure, throughout the night. Again, Ohio, the first numbers are coming in. We are set to look at Ohio and North Carolina, where the polls close in about 4 minutes. We'll look at those numbers the moment they come in, and we'll go back to Georgia as well. ABC News live coverage of the midterm 2022 continues right after this here on ABC.
He was there, inside the White House, loyally working alongside his president. He was there, right there, inside the Capitol, as an angry mob chanted his name with fury. And now, for the first time since the January 6th insurrection, the interview everyone will be talking about. Mike Pence, David Muir, Monday on ABC's World News Tonight, and across all of ABC News, and stream on Hulu.
All right, let's go.
Jack's family, and he's in trouble.
We have lives to save. Canoodling in the firehouse. Well, I am shocked.
Can't lead us to this, I will. Are we ready to be a family again?
Congratulations, you all made it. We didn't pick you for your grades. We picked you for your fight.
Oh, I slept with an intern.
I do recommend you stay away from elevators.
Dr. Montgomery.
I'm going to take a bath. You want to come?
Yay!
It's a beautiful day to save lives.
This is a hell of a story.
We're going to really take off.
I will work like a lion.
I'm a believer.
I don't think we've ever had that in 14 seasons.
I'm just so happy.
You are absolutely brilliant.
You were smart enough to follow through with your crazy idea.
That's really great.
I'm gonna make you filthy rich.
Let's go!
Shark Tank, new Friday on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Celebrity Jeopardy is headed to primetime. And the categories are Bright Stars, Tough Clues, $1 million for charity. The stars are out and brighter than ever.
What is Lisbon?
What is Mona Lisa?
Can I retire?
Celebrity Jeopardy.
You're going to have to pose that as a question.
What is Celebrity Jeopardy?
Mayim Bialik hosts Celebrity Jeopardy. New Sunday on ABC and stream on Hulu.
I love this show. Vanna, how you doing, sweetie?
ABC Sunday.
Get ready to see some of your favorite stars.
Talking about us, right? It's not a joke.
Oh, I love you both so much.
I'm a big fan for a long time.
Who could win $1 million for charity?
Get nervous.
I got this.
Make money.
Celebrity Wheel of Fortune. All new ABC Sunday and stream on Hulu.
Welcome back to ABC News Live coverage of the midterm election 2022. It is now 7:30 here in the East, and we are tracking several key Senate races in the country. Obviously, Georgia closed a half an hour ago. The Senate race there, Senator Raphael Warnock facing a challenge from Herschel Walker. We continue to get numbers in. He's using about 12% of the vote in, and Raphael Warnock with a sizable lead, but again, a huge part of the rural areas of Georgia still yet to be counted. Two more states now have closed. North Carolina, the Senate race there, a bit of a sleeper race, not getting a lot of attention. Sherry Beasley up against the Congressman Ted Budd, supported by former President Trump. He was polling well with a slight lead over Sherry Beasley, but she was a very strong candidate. We'll wait for numbers in that race as well. Ohio, the polls have now closed. Congressman Tim Ryan, the Democrat in this race, up against Republican J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance holding a polling lead of about a couple of points, though that's still very close for Ohio, since we know where Ohio has gone for the Republicans the last couple of cycles. Tim Ryan hoping, though, to trade Congress for the Senate. There is one race we can project at this hour, and it's also from Ohio, the race for governor. The very popular Republican governor there, Mike DeWine, will serve a second term in Ohio. Not entirely a surprise there. And from Governor DeWine, I want to bring it over to Governor Chris Christie, former governor of New Jersey. Chris, how you feeling about tonight? Governor DeWine, not a surprise there. He took some heat during COVID, but then regained in popularity almost soon thereafter.
Yeah, I mean, he took very little heat during COVID, David. I think most people across the state found his response to be reasonable, and they like Mike DeWine, and that's really what it comes down to. They like him, and then when you look at Georgia, one of the things that we didn't talk about before is Georgia in the election integrity law changed the way they count also. So they've been counting mail-in votes and early votes from the time they've come in. So a lot of what you'll see here in the beginning is those results, is mail-in and early vote. The interesting part of that is, if you look at it, Warnock, you would expect to be doing as well as he's doing right now in that early and mail-in. When we get to start counting Election Day votes, you're going to see a much different result.
Chris, let me ask you about Governor DeWine and whether or not you think his popularity in that state is going to help bring J.D. Vance across the finish line.
No question. Look, there's a statistic I used to use when I was chairman of the Republican Governors Association when talking to donors. In states where the Senate race and the governor's race is both on the ticket, when the governor wins, the Senate candidate of the same party wins 85% of the time. Wow. And so it is very powerful to have a popular governor at the top of the ticket for the Senate race. And that, I will tell you, is the biggest hope for Herschel Walker in Georgia. Brian Kemp's going to win that race. I think he's going to win it by a fairly substantial margin, given that he won by a point over Stacey Abrams 4 years ago. We're probably looking more at 5 or 6 points. And that it could be, Brian Kemp could be the first person in American history to drag Herschel Walker over the goal line.
Well, that's true. Maybe he'll get the high spin at the end of the night. Let's bring it back over to Rick Klein at the big board, because you were comparing how Raphael Warnock is performing up against Stacey Abrams in that governor's race.
Yeah, this is fascinating because we're seeing it play out in real time right now. Raphael Warnock is up about 22 points over Herschel Walker. That's not going to last. As we talked about, this is mostly the early vote. You can see him hitting the benchmarks that he needs to hit in Fulton County, where most of the vote is. So keep in mind, 22 points, 112,000 votes that he's up right now. Let's compare that to what's going on in the governor's race at the same time in the night. Look at that. Stacey Abrams is only at 56-43. So instead of 22 points, you're talking about 13 points. So that's 40,000, 50,000 votes that are either skipped on the Senate line or just going for one versus the other. So Governor Kemp is getting a lot of people voting for him that are probably then going and voting for Raphael Warnock, or just skipping the Senate race, or maybe going to the third-party candidate. These are the same voters, right? These are the same votes that are being cast and being counted. And right now we're seeing that Stacey Abrams is significantly behind where Raphael Warnock is, and conversely, Brian Kemp significantly ahead of where Herschel Walker is.
I want to take that point over to Donna Brazil, because it was just 2 years ago. What's changed for Stacey Abrams? Has she lost a little bit of the magic, or are the times different? Is this a different moment in the country?
Well, as you well know, all political winds are turbulent, and for Stacey Abrams, 2022 is a turbulent year. 2018, she's running as a challenger. It was an open seat, so she put in place what we saw in 2020 that gave Democrats an opportunity to turn that state blue. And so while she might be falling behind in the early vote, it's Stacey Abrams' operation, her playbook, that has even gotten Georgia on the minds of Democrats. Chris and I were talking about the last time I went down to Georgia, other than to watch the Saints beat, the Falcons. And it's when Bill Clinton was there in '92. Joe Biden. So Georgia's now in play for the rest of our lifetime because of Stacey Abrams.
So if Raphael Warnock wins tonight, he wins in part because of the machine that she helped set up.
Well, I would hope he would congratulate her and would help pull her over, like you said. Hopefully he's the quarterback on this one.
And one other thing, David, to look at Kemp. Now, the Kemp difference here is that I think the best thing that happened to Brian Kemp, besides his performance as governor, was he was opposed by Donald Trump. And I think what you're going to see as we get into the suburbs outside Atlanta, 4 years ago, Brian Kemp didn't do great in those suburbs. I predict to you tonight he's going to do very, very well in those suburbs, because those suburban women who do not like Donald Trump have now sided with Brian Kemp because he fought Trump and won in the primary. And so they've now become allies of Kemp, where 4 years ago they were not.
Well, we know all eyes on Georgia, the last presidential race, and Governor Christie brings up a great point, John. You and I have actually talked about this off camera. If Kemp wins tonight, this would signal that you can stand up to Trump, you can stand up for, a carefully counted election and stand by the results and still win.
I mean, Brian Kemp refused to do what Donald Trump wanted, which was to reconvene a special session of the legislature to overturn the election results in 2020. He said no. Trump went after him hard, recruited David Perdue to run against him in the Republican primary. Kemp crushed him. Perdue got like 20-some points, absolutely crushed him. So this shows you can be a Republican, a conservative Republican, defy Donald Trump, have Donald Trump come after you hard, and still survive.
And we're going to track the Secretary of State's race in Georgia as well.
Brad Raffensperger. I mean, another one. I mean, Donald Trump recruited a Republican member of the House, Jody Hice, to leave his seat in the House to run for Secretary of State in Georgia against Brad Raffensperger, and Brad Raffensperger won that Republican primary, and he's very much the front runner to win the general election tonight.
Nightline anchor Byron Pitts. I know it's early, but what do you make of these numbers for Brian Kemp tonight?
Well, David, I love sports analogies, so picking up on them. To this point, Kemp has given Herschel Walker the Heisman. He's kept his distance. In fact, a couple of days ago, they had an event where every Republican attended except for Herschel Walker. That's one thing. The other thing I want to mention about something unusual, I think, about Georgia that works to the advantage, I think, to Warnock to some degree, about the ground game. He's pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church. In Black America, that is the big house. That reaches all across the state of Georgia. Also, Georgia has the third largest number of HBCUs in the country. One of them is in Savannah, where Warnock is from. And I think that will impact the race as well. Kemp, as I mentioned, is very popular. David, finally, I want to give you one number, 39.1. That's how much unemployment has dropped in Georgia in the past 7 years. So the economy is important there, but relative to many parts of the country, folk are feeling pretty good about the economy. So I think some of the other issues will matter there greatly.
I want to hit on something you said there, though, because if you watch their campaign rallies, or their campaign events, I should call them, where you know where I'm going with this, even in just the last 2 to 3 days before Election Day, Raphael Warnock was in a church setting or a local community center setting. You had Herschel Walker at the football game. It speaks volumes about the difference that they're trying to show in these final days.
Oh, yeah, I call it the church ladies versus the tailgaters, right? You go to a Warnock event, it's about 30 people, mostly Black, mostly women. You go to a Herschel Walker event, it's hundreds of people, mostly white, mostly women. At a Warnock event, he talks about policy, he talks about character, he talks about credentials. At a Walker event, they talk about when he beat Tennessee when he was a running back. People there line up to get his autograph. And something that you never see in politics, Herschel Walker will wait to take a picture with every single person there. It goes on for hours. And so it speaks to the different dynamics that go on in Georgia in this race.
All right, I want to bring in Heidi Heitkamp, former senator in North Dakota. Hey, Heidi.
One thing that isn't getting talked about here is how Warnock became a United States senator. When he came in, he used the machine that Johnny Isakson, whose seat he took, he actually hired their people to do the kind of constituent services. He has been myopically focused on Georgia. And when you think about Stacey, and I love her to death, but she became the face of the Democratic Party. So she was much more aligned with traditional progressive Democratic ideals, where Warnock put his head down, did his work, brought in Johnny's folks to help do constituent services, and I think you see this in the numbers.
You also see Stacey Abrams, you see a lot of celebrities coming into Georgia. You don't see that in Raphael Warnock's church settings.
Well, on purpose. And Warnock wanted that image that I am here doing the work for the people of Georgia. I am not a celebrity. I am your United States senator. And I'm not saying that was Stacey's image, but I think that after her, remarkable organizational skills and what she was able to do in Georgia, she became the face of progressive African-American women. And I think there's some resistance to that celebrity in Georgia, where Warnock just did what he needed to do to make those connections with the people.
I would be remiss, since you mentioned progressive black women, I would be remiss if I didn't say if progressive black women did not go to church and listen to the sermons and the games and watch them, the Democratic Party would not be in the White House today.
I agree
so
with
black women have done our job.
I'm not saying that despairingly, but I'm saying that that's what you see, I think, in these differences. The Democratic brand in states like ours are really, really difficult to overcome.
You have a popular Republican governor. You got to give him some dabs for that, too.
Yeah, I think he's getting credit, at least so far tonight, then well ahead of Stacey Abrams. Mary Bruce, you were on the ground in Georgia when we were covering all of these allegations, and it was interesting what Lindsay Davis pointed out here at the desk moments ago, that people made up their mind weeks ago. You took note of the reaction from people when another set of allegations is being reported. It didn't sit well with a lot of folks in Georgia.
I was there actually the day after the second woman came forward and revealed that, according to her, that Herschel Walker pressured her to have an abortion, paid for an abortion. On the ground at his rally, there were more people there than folks on the ground said they had ever seen at his rallies. To them on the ground, it didn't matter. And it was really surprising. And to Lindsay's point about going through some of the data already, the loyalty to party ahead of the candidate was really on display when I was there. I was amazed. A lot of his supporters who I talked to said, look, that he is someone who deserves grace, who deserves forgiveness. I'll never forget a woman I spoke to named Kathy who was a diehard Herschel Walker supporter. And she said, look, that was his sinning phase. Even if the allegations were true over and over again, Herschel Walker supporters who I talked to said, it simply doesn't matter. It's about the man he is today. And to Byron's point, the rallies were huge. He was energizing the crowd. They were drawn to that star power and what he was promising. Even if it wasn't a lot of details, they liked the overall message and they were going to stick with him.
Yeah, you had to wonder. And I know that the women who did come forward said they were apolitical. This is not why. It was because of his anti-abortion rights stance. But you did wonder at the time, would this backfire in any way and help rally the cause behind Herschel Walker, those who supported him already? Lindsay, you were digging into the numbers. You found something even more here.
You know, what's so interesting here, 1 in 3 voters in Georgia are black, right? And so when we're talking about the black vote here in particular, 89% going overwhelmingly for Rachel Warnock. But he is underperforming 4% less of the black vote than where he was during the special election last year in 2021. And in particular, he's underperforming with black men by 6%. So those voters are actually going to Herschel Walker, only 3% less with black women. And again, as Donna Brazil has pointed out, black women have time and time again been called the backbone of the Democratic Party. And we're seeing this bear out, that black women are still more likely to go for Raphael Warnock.
And again, these are the exit polls, what they're saying coming out. But Rick, what do you have by way of numbers? 29% of the vote now in Georgia. What are you seeing?
Yeah, we're seeing as the vote flows in, we're actually getting the first in-person vote in at least a couple of places. Right now, we're seeing Raphael Warnock continue to hit the numbers he needs to do, particularly in Fulton County, as we discussed. It's a huge one. We heard Governor Christie talking a little bit before about the Georgia suburbs. Gwinnett County, a great example of that. And when we look at the benchmark numbers, Raphael Warnock ahead of where he needs to be to run an even race. He feels good about this. Again, though, most of the vote we have so far is early vote or early in person. We're still seeing a lot of split ticket voters. I just checked the numbers a moment ago, and we're seeing, again, Raphael Warnock with a much larger lead than his ticket mate has at the moment. We're going to see this shrink as the night goes on. There's no question in my mind, with only less than about a third of the expected vote in. This is not the kind of margin we're going to see, but so far, at least, Raphael Warnock is hitting the kind of numbers he needs to.
John?
There's an important caveat to that, and that is, first of all, Fulton County is counting much faster than the rest of the state. So, 63% of the vote is in Fulton County. That is a Democratic county. 63% of the vote in compared to just 29% statewide. And the other thing is, of that vote, it's almost entirely early vote that has been counted so far in Fulton County. That is going to be the Democratic votes in the Democratic county. That's why you're still seeing on our board a big lead for Warnock over Walker. That lead is going to shrink considerably, may or may not disappear. I mean, we'll see. But right now, you're looking at heavily Democratic votes being counted so far.
And it's very important to point out. I see first numbers coming in from North Carolina. Rachel will come to you right after the break. It's now 15 minutes before 8 o'clock. We know at the top of the hour. Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, Florida, all closing, all key states. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with our live coverage right here at ABC News, the midterms 2022.
You better check your email.
Thursday.
I just read Meredith's email that she's leaving.
It's the Station 19 Grey's Anatomy fall finale event.
The helicopter was struck by lightning.
Ready for you, 19.
I don't think you are.
We are in a lightning storm. You will see gnarly injuries.
And tragedy strikes.
Everything okay?
One of our own.
This is a hell of a story.
You're going to really take off.
I will work like a lion.
I'm a believer.
I don't think we've ever had that in 14 seasons.
I'm just so happy.
You are absolutely brilliant.
You were smart enough to follow through with your crazy idea.
That's really brave.
I'm going to make you filthy rich.
Let's go!
Shark Tank, new Friday on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Celebrity Jeopardy is headed to primetime. And the categories are Bright Stars, Tough Clues, $1 million for charity. The stars are out and brighter than ever.
What is Lisbon?
What is Mona Lisa?
Can I retire?
Celebrity Jeopardy.
You're going to have to pose that as a question.
What is Celebrity Jeopardy?
Mayim Bialik hosts Celebrity Jeopardy. New Sunday on ABC and stream on Hulu.
I love this show. Vanna, how you doing, sweetie?
ABC Sunday.
Get ready to see some of your favorite stars.
Talking about us, right? It's not a joke.
Oh, I love you both so much.
I'm a big fan for a long time.
Who could win $1 million for charity?
I'm getting nervous.
I got this.
Big money, big money.
Celebrity Wheel of Fortune, all new ABC Sunday and stream on Hulu.
The next person that walks down on this beach could be my future husband.
Cheers to a drama-free summer.
That's never happened, but okay.
You can feel the dysfunction starting to happen.
That's more like it.
It's getting messy on this beach.
Your Bachelor favorites are back on the sand.
He's so cute, I just want to hurt him.
Be happy for me. You're not going to give me a love story. I'm leaving.
There's no more crying necessary.
Easy for you to say. Bachelor in Paradise, new Mondays and Tuesdays on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Sean Murphy. I'm an attending.
Meet our new first years.
Newbies.
Don't call them that.
That was extraordinary.
Killing animals for medicine is wrong.
Refusing would be grounds for termination.
I won't do it.
Dr. Murphy made a mistake.
My decision was right.
Your decision left her paralyzed.
You're wrong.
The Good Doctor, new Monday on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Welcome back to ABC News live coverage of the midterm election night here in America. A crucial night ahead, as you don't need me to tell you now. 48 minutes past 7 o'clock. A couple of key states have closed. We can project in Kentucky in the Senate race there. I mentioned it some time ago. We can now say that Senator Rand Paul will serve a third term in the United States Senate. We're also tracking North Carolina at this hour. Not projecting anything there. The numbers are still very early. 36% of the vote in. And you can see the Democrat there, Sherry Beasley, with a sizable lead. But again, it's very early. A lot of the rural areas areas in North Carolina still have to be tabulated. Ted Budd, of course, the Republican member of Congress, backed by Donald Trump in that race. I want to bring it right over to Rachel Scott at the big board, because you've looked at some of these metropolitan areas, and Sherry Beasley is performing quite well.
She is. We're really paying attention to what we're calling sort of the research triangle here, a bunch of college and universities around this area near Raleigh. So let's look at Wake County right now. With 54% of the vote expected in, Sherry Beasley is outperforming where President Biden did in this county 2 years ago. But again, David, you said it is very early here. No in-person election day vote in just yet. This is early by mail, early in-person vote. So we will see these numbers start to shift.
Curious, does the benchmark tool work on that one as well?
It sure does, David. So let's take a look. 62% would be the benchmark, overperforming there at 68%.
All right, at least for now. Let's get to Stephanie Ramos. She's live in North Carolina for us, part of our election night team. And Stephanie, this race has been a little under the radar, and I know Democrats will be asking if she comes very close but doesn't pull this out, should they have spent more time on Sherry Beasley?
Exactly, David, and they just cranked up the music here. Everyone here has a little extra pep in their step with those early votes, early numbers coming in. But as you said, this Senate race really hasn't gotten that much attention, not much national attention, but it does have the possibility to make history tonight. If Beasley wins tonight and is elected to the Senate, she would be the third black woman elected to the Senate following Kamala Harris and Carol Moseley Braun. It is going to be tough. President Biden's approval rating here is very low, and Trump looms large over the Republican opponent in this race, Representative Ted Budd, a three-term congressman. So it is going to be tricky. But what we heard last night at Beasley's campaign rally, the last-ditch effort to get voters out there to vote for her, is that in order to win this, she needs a significant amount of votes in cities where a majority are black voters, cities like Charlotte and Raleigh, where we are tonight, David.
All right, Stephanie Ramos there in North Carolina. We'll come back to you often, Stephanie, and give us a shout if you learn anything more from the campaign. Donna Brazil, North Carolina has broken the hearts of Democrats so many times before.
Well, I'm a Southerner. It has broken a lot of hearts. But here's one thing. Sherry Beasley knows politics. She's a former Supreme Court justice. They call her Justice Beasley. She lost her last statewide race by 400 votes. This is an uphill climb because, when your party is not invested in presidential years and then you come in midterm years, you have to do a lot of groundwork. She's gotten a lot of support from Chuck Schumer, the traditional Democratic allies. Could she have used a little bit more money? Yes. But you know what? She is running a fabulous campaign.
And she was very careful on that debate stage to distance herself between President Biden and what she would like to do if she makes it to Congress, to the Senate. She actually said neither party is doing it right now.
That's
which
correct.
Has been an answer we've heard over and over again this campaign cycle. Bring it over to Governor Christie, because you're hearing from folks on the ground in Georgia.
In Georgia on real votes, so both mail-in vote and early vote. One of the early trends is that Walker is consistently trailing Kemp in that early vote by 3 to 3.5%. So what we talked about before, how well does Kemp do? What's his margin? If Walker's going 3 to 3.5% lower consistently in the early vote, what's that tell you about whether Walker will have enough to get over the goal line or not? Kemp is going to need to get in 54, 55% of the vote if Walker consistently is 3.5 points behind Warnock for Warnock to be able, or for Walker to be able to win. So you're seeing a choice, even amongst the Republicans, where Walker's not doing as well as Kemp's doing across and that's the entire state. They're saying that's consistent in every county they've looked at so far.
We're going to be asking this question about other states, too. Ohio, Governor DeWine, extremely popular there. We've already projected he wins because that was an easy one. The question is, does he help J.D. Vance finish as well?
And is it enough? I mean, even when they win, do they win by enough to be able to make up the drag with what Mitch McConnell called some less than great candidates?
I want to bring a House district into this conversation, Rachel Scott. You're looking at Virginia, and you and I on World News have been talking the last couple of nights about what to watch early on election night for people who are watching us at home, and we're grateful for everybody who's watching. We're going to be here for hours tonight. This is a bellwether race in Virginia.
It sure is, David, and I really have my eye on two different districts here, starting in Virginia's 2nd District. This is Elaine Luria's district. She's a member of the January 6th Select Committee here. She's running in a very tough race against Jen Kiggins in here. 27% of the vote expected in. We are seeing that Kiggins is doing pretty well here, but this is all election day vote. This is a district where President Biden won by just 3% of the vote, Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin won here by 10% of the vote. So this is a Democrat that is facing a lot of headwinds. She flipped this seat in 2018. She knows that her role on the January 6th committee may have turned some conservative voters off in this area. But David, she says, regardless of the result tonight, it is worth it.
Rachel Scott over at the board. She's tracking the House races. And Elaine Luria, who had that high-profile role on the January 6th Select Committee in Washington, she famously said, Rachel, that if I lose this race because of my role on the January 6th Committee, it still will have been worth it. Rachel, we'll come back to that race often as soon as you have more. Our live coverage here in New York City of Election Night 2022 continues in a moment. The whole team is here. 8 o'clock is a key hour. Several key Senate races. We're tracking the first results expected to come in. We'll see you in a moment.
Rated PG-13. Reserve your tickets now.
Hey, Luke, are you ready to host the CMA Awards?
I'm fired up.
That is not good. We got to get in sync. We got to do some practice.
Like a CMA Awards boot camp.
Reba, Darius, I got nothing.
Me,
When?
10 years ago.
Yeah, right. More like 20.
These are the voice exercises I use. Boots. Too small. No.
Keep your eye on my elbow, right? I'm going this way if someone comes up and tries to tackle it.
Hey, it's not gonna happen. It's an award show. Elbow.
When they win, we can do the shovel pass, lateral, or we can do the Hail Mary.
I'm going deep. I'm open. Ow. We got this.
Let's go, baby. It's going to be a great show.
Luke Bryan and Peyton Manning host the CMA Awards live Wednesday on ABC and stream next day on Hulu.
You better check your email.
Thursday.
I just read Meredith's email that she's leaving.
It's the Station 19 Grey's Anatomy Fall Finale event.
The helicopter was struck by lightning.
Ready for you, 19.
I don't think you are.
We are in a lightning storm. You will see gnarly injuries.
And tragedy strikes.
Everything okay?
One of our own.
What are you wearing?
I have a cooling vest. It's going to be 100 degrees. I also have cooling hoodie. If she'd had the surgery, Dr. Lim would be better able to regulate that temperature.
I told her not to rush into it.
I have much more surgical experience.
I have much more physical disability experience than you.
I don't like her.
I work with people I don't like all the time.
It's your job to teach me.
Stop talking.
No.
You're off the case.
The good